know if you guys have noticed or not, but over the last few years, everything has gotten a little bit, actually sometimes a lot, more expensive. It is because of that perhaps, like us here in my household, maybe you're thinking about trying to heat or cool only the rooms that you are using, thereby reducing your energy costs, trying to save a little bit of money at the end of the month on those utility bills. That is why today we're going to be taking a look at something that I think is a little bit different for this channel, but I do think that it's going to make for a fun and interesting review. Anyways, this is the Dr. Prepare portable air conditioning unit, 10,000 BTUs. And like I said, this is a little bit of a different kind of review for this channel, but when they reached out and asked if I wanted to do this review, I looked at it and I thought, one, it is supposed to be a smart air conditioner, and two, it is meant to be portable, and I think that those two things together make it just strange enough of a product for me to have fun reviewing. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to take a look at this Amazon listing first, because I think it's an easy way to kind of go over some of the specifications. I did mention that it is a 10,000 BTU portable air conditioner, which does mean it should cool right up to around 450 square feet. Coincidentally, that's going to work beautifully for my living room, which is actually directly behind me there. I think a lot of us probably have a lot of tech gear in our living room these days, televisions and receiver boxes and speakers and projectors perhaps, and all these things produce a lot of heat. Luckily, my living room also has French doors. I think they're French doors. They're doors, right? They close, and that will help kind of seal things off. And in those hotter months, which are coming very, very rapidly, in fact, I'd argue they're kind of already here. We're already in the 80s with very high humidity here in the eastern part of Tennessee. It's going to be really nice to be able to close those doors, keep that room as cold as I want it to be without having to cool the entire rest of the house, which is probably not being occupied. As you can see here, the cooled air actually does exit from the front of the air conditioner. Some of the larger ones may exit from the top, but this one does actually output from the front. There is on the back a little exhaust thing. It slides into place, and then that's going to go into a bracket that goes into your window to exhaust the hot air out. That's definitely a requirement if you have this thing just running with no exhaust. Cool air is coming out the front, but hot air is going to be coming out the back, so you're not really going to be doing any use at all. We're going to talk about that bracket for the exhaust here in a little bit, because I think it's probably the worst part of this device. You can get around it, but I'm going to, again, talk about that here in a little bit. It is a smart device. As you can see here mentioned on this listing, they've got their application. We're going to deep dive into that app as best we can here momentarily, as well as Google Home integration as well, because that is kind of a thing. I've noticed with some air conditioners I've used in the past that actually accessing the filter to be clean might be a little bit annoying. Sometimes the clips and so forth that hold the grill in place might be a little bit on the cheaper feeling side. This does seem pretty decent to me. It's all kind of in one piece, and it comes off and should be quite easy to clean. You'll also see here on this listing that it has a built-in dehumidifier, which could add some pretty nice additional value, you could say, to this thing. We're moving 61 pints, 29 liters of humidity per day. Now, there's actually a reservoir in this thing that's going to fill up with that water, and once it's full, it'll actually stop running on its own, and at that point you can drain it a couple of different ways. There's a drain that's halfway up the back of it if you want to have continuous draining, so you can just have a hose that comes with it stuck in there and going into a bucket, or maybe going outside or something like that. And if you want to just sort of drain it whenever it's full, there's another drain on the bottom. You can either use that hose or put a pan underneath it and drain it into that, either way you want to go. So let's talk about that exhaust bracket, the thing that actually connects into your window, because I mentioned that it's probably the worst part of this device. You have a picture here, and it kind of shows what we're talking about right there. It has some problems. So it says here that it fits a window of up to 67 inches, and in fact, on their official website, it says 25 to 67 inches, but that's not explicitly true. So this bracket is actually split up into 2 or 3 pieces. There's one piece that has the actual exhaust port on it, but if that's not wide enough or tall enough for your window, you slide this other piece inside, and that lets you adjust the size. Here's the problem. My windows are 31 inches wide. That first bracket is 25 inches. If you slide the second bracket in, it actually bumps up against the exhaust hole, the actual hose itself coming through that hole. It bumps into that, and that prevents it from being smaller than 36 inches. So if your window is between 25 inches and 36 inches wide or tall, it's not going to fit. I actually emailed them back and asked them about this, and they confirmed my suspicion. You're going to have to actually cut it. So measure your window, make sure you have a way to actually cut this bracket before you order the thing. Now, this was very easy to do because it telescopes. It slides back and forth. So you don't have to be super precise. Just don't cut it way too short, and you'll be absolutely fine. But again, none of that is mentioned in the manual itself. What do you do if the bracket does not fit your window? You're just kind of left to figure that out yourself. I assumed cutting it would be the smartest thing for me to do, and that is what they confirmed for me via email. Now, the rest of the bracket is kind of hit or miss as well. The hose seems to be of reasonable quality. It can expand and shrink to pretty great degrees, so you can reach a pretty good distance to your window itself. The actual brackets that go on either end just sort of screw into place. Again, no big deal. But then one more problem I'm having with the bracket itself, when it's in the window and you're closing it down, it just doesn't fit super well. And that's going to be down to how your window is actually structured. Some windows are probably going to work fine. Some it's maybe not going to fit great. It might be a little bit loose, but it's working. And at the end of the day, that's what matters the most. As you can see, the instructions do mention that you might need to actually use some duct tape to firmly secure the window bracket kit in place, and that's definitely something that I would have to do with my particular window. So let's talk about that application. There's a QR code on the side of the air conditioner that will take you to this Smart Life application. It's okay. It's actually one that I used in the past for some smart outlets, and it does the job reasonably well. Actually setting the device up with this app was not too difficult. There's actually a button on the top of the air conditioner you're going to press and hold, and it's going to enable Wi-Fi. You go through the setup here, and you're just going to look for a Wi-Fi air conditioner. It's sort of generic. Click on it, and eventually it will find it, and you will be set up. At that point, here are your controls, and it's really quite basic. So you have different modes, different fan speeds. So here you can control the temperature that the thing is actually set to. Of course, you can turn it off and on. Where it says function rule, and you're going to see some things like this, things that aren't quite how you would say this. This should say mode, but it says function rule. You've got cool, dry, and then fan. Of course, heat is grayed out. I'm not sure why that's even an option there, but it obviously does not function. And these are pretty straightforward. That's your dehumidifier. That's going to act as a fan. The other one is going to act as an air conditioner. For fan speed, you have high and low. That is the most control you have. And then under more, you can do a timer, you can do a child lock, a sleep function, and then you can change the actual unit of the temperature from Celsius to Fahrenheit, whichever one makes the most sense to you. Like I said, it is really quite basic. If you click this little pin icon up here in the corner, which is also a little bit strange, there are some other things that you can do. Most of this is not super important, but we do need to talk about third-party control. I don't have Alexa, but I do have Google Assistant, and I'll show you how this works. If you go into Google Home, come down here to Devices, and then click on Add. You're looking for Works with Google Home, and you should be able to search for Smart Life. And if the app is on your phone, once it sees it, it'll just ask you to authorize it, and you're pretty much done. At that point, it will pop up at the bottom of your list of devices. I have actually stuck it into my living room, and from here, now what I can do is I can actually turn this air conditioner off and on through my Google Home app, or also through the Google Assistant. And we'll take a look at that really quickly here. So let's click on the button, it's off, click it again, and it's back on. And that's fine. If I long press it, you can see that you have on and off. One strange thing is it thinks it's in Celsius, it's in Fahrenheit. And in fact, if I change this, it will switch it to Celsius. So in the Google Home app, that is, for whatever reason, backwards. You're just going to have to ignore that. There's nothing else you can do here, though. You can't change the temperature in the Google Home app. All you can do is turn it off and on. And to take that a step further, if we use Google Assistant, set living room AC to 74. It will beep as though it has done something, but it has not. No, this is not just a problem with Gemini. The same exact thing happens with Google Assistant or whatever you're using. So again, that Google Home integration is pretty limited. Quickly talking about the remote, it's really, really basic. You have your fan speed high and low. That changes your temperature. That changes the mode. that's going to switch between your different Celsius and Fahrenheit. Sleep timer power, it's really, really basic, but I mean, it works. A couple of other sort of basic operating things that I noticed. One, it does seem like it takes it a little while to actually shut off once it has reached the temperature that it is set to. It seems like maybe it wants to run for maybe another degree or so actually until it's actually going to shut off. That might annoy you, it might not. Something that definitely does bug me a little bit is the fact that it basically is by default in an eco mode. What I mean by that is once it reaches the temperature, it doesn't just stop blowing cold air, it shuts off completely. No air is blowing at all. I have an air conditioner in my bedroom and I kind of use it for almost like white noise as well as just keeping things cool. I'm a very warm sleeper. And I like the fact that I can turn off an eco mode and through the night when it reaches the appropriate temperature, the compressor shuts off, but the fan keeps blowing. Why do I like that? Well, because the sound remains relatively consistent. This would not work for that because it's just going to shut off once it hits an appropriate temperature. And if you're like me, that's going to wake me up. So maybe that bothers you. Maybe you're happy that there's an eco mode and that's what it defaults to, but it's just worth mentioning to me. Speaking of the sort of temperature tracking though, I do find that its temperature measurement seems to be a little bit inaccurate. Strewn throughout my house, I have these little temperature sensors made by Wise. It is actually very warm in my studio right now, and I need to turn on an air conditioner in here. I'm kind of dying a little bit, but I'm filming, so I have it turned off. Anyways, those sensors are pretty darn accurate. I've noticed that one of those sensors, sitting only a couple of feet away, seemed to disagree with this air conditioner by a couple of degrees. Now, you can adjust to this, right? Stop paying attention to the temperature and pay attention to how comfortable you are. And again, you can kind of get around this, but at least in my experience, mine seems to be a little bit off kilter from what the known temperature is, reading a little bit cooler than it actually might be. Now, part of that is probably because I think the temperature reading might be coming from lower on the device, right? So you exist up here, 3, 4, 5 feet off the ground. If it's reading the temperature on the floor, there could be a 2-degree temperature gradient there. So that might explain what's going on. To make the matter of the temperature tracking just a little bit more complicated, let me show you this. Right now, it is showing my current temperature is 73 degrees. But watch what happens whenever I turn it on and then I lower the temperature until it actually kicks on. As it starts to run, what you're going to see is that current temperature start to actually go up. I believe the unit is just getting warm, obviously, as it's producing this cool air out of the front. The hardware itself will get a little bit warmer, and there you go. It's going to start to creep upward. Of course, as that kind of thing happens, it's not going to be the end of the world, but it should result in maybe the air conditioner running a little bit longer than it should have, lowering the actual ambient temperature in the room a degree or so lower than it should because the device itself has gotten warmer by running. One other thing that I noticed is that it's not particularly loud, okay? So I actually have a 14,000 BTU unit in this studio. Like I said earlier, it's turned off. And the primary reason is because it's really loud. My microphone does have some noise cancellation stuff built in, and it usually does a pretty good job of masking it, but it's a pretty darn loud air conditioner. This thing is not too bad. When you're on the high speed mode and you're right up on it, you're going to be somewhere around 69 or 70 decibels. And if you drop to the low version, it's going to drop with the low fan speed. It's going to drop in that volume a decent amount. So that's another big concern with these things. Unlike, a central air where all the noise is outside of your house or somewhere stashed away, this is in the room with you. So that noise problem is a concern. If it's in your living room trying to watch TV, it can't be too loud. We were able to watch television with this thing right in the same room with us without too much issue. So what's the overall verdict? When we look at this thing and you look at the specs and you look, I think most importantly, at the price, you have to kind of ask yourself, is it good enough to ignore some of the rough edges? Is it good enough to ignore that the exhaust bracket is a little bit shaky? The app is pretty limited. The Google Home integration is very limited. Well, let's think about this for a second. 10,000 BTUs, $299. Let's jump over to Lowe's, okay? $299. That's a 5,000 BTU portable air conditioner. So that's going to cool, less than half, 150 square feet instead of, like I said here, 450 square feet. What would it cost if you went down to Lowe's to get a 10,000 BTU? $700. Now, it's a Hisense, and I would bet you that the app is probably better. I'd bet you that that home integration, if it's there, maybe that's better as well. It actually says 550 square feet, so maybe the fan's better or something. But you can get the general idea. It's $700. You're more than double the price of this air conditioner. So if your primary concern is you need a portable air conditioner, maybe you don't like having to take it out of the window at the end of the summer. I know I don't. It's super, super annoying. They're heavy to carry around. This thing's on wheels. You just drag it around. It's actually really easy to move. It's only $300 for 10,000 BTU. That puts it in the range of a standard window unit with the same level of cooling. You see your 10,000 BTU is actually cheaper by almost $100. Anytime you go portable, the price just goes up. It's how that works. In this instance, you're getting a portable one for the price of a non-portable one, actually cheaper than a non-portable one. So at that point, I would say to you, I can probably overlook those rough edges for this thing and say, it seems pretty solid. So guys, I do need to give a big shout out to Dr. Prepare for sending this air conditioner over for me to review. As always, no money has changed hands for this review, and they are seeing it at the exact same time as everyone else. I will be putting an affiliate link to Amazon, and I believe an affiliate link to their official store as well in the description down below, which means if you click on one of those links and you make a purchase of any kind, I should earn commission off of that. So keep that in mind. It's a great way to help support the channel. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more content like this, and until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.